Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session number 3, looking at Misogonus, a manuscript play from the 1570s. It is quite badly damaged today. We are heading headfirst towards the most damaged part, the ending. So every so often people may either pause in a very pointed fashion or sort of go or do strange things to indicate that there are gaps in the text as we try and figure out what we might do with this play. We weren't too sure of it in the first session. There was a lot of questions, and then we hit some wonderful scenes in the second session, and now we're wondering how it's all going to be tied together. It's a prodigal son story. Philogonus has a son, Misogonus, who is a bit of a git. Because his father didn't beat him repeatedly as a child, didn't give him any education, and also didn't hit him on a regular basis, and therefore he's turned out to be useless and terrible, and has gone off drinking and gambling and dancing, and so his father disinherits him and is very sad. And then his father finds out from one of his servants, Codrus, and his wife Alison inform Philogonus that actually he's got a second son. There were twins, and his departed, late lamented wife decided that clearly Philogonus wasn't going to be able to look after two children, and he's clearly going to mess up the one, so sent the other child away to a far-off land. And that's sort of, broadly speaking, where we've reached our place in the play. Estrangement between father and son, a secret additional son that nobody knew about, off in the distance. There are various servant figures. There's a clown figure who's doing some very politically incorrect things, and there are occasional issues that we hit that are not just absent text but also actually fully present text. So this text certainly so far has already been a tad bit ableist. It may be more so in the ensuing pages. Reading and finding out what's going on in this play today, we have this wonderful room of readers. So reading Cacurgus, sort of vice-like figure, and Eugonus today is...
Hi, I'm Tamara. I'm an actor, and watch me mispronounce those names for the whole time.
It's all right, I'm going to lead you off by mispronouncing them all, but in a more practiced way. Reading Liturgus today is...
Hello, my name's Francis Cox. I'm an actor living in sunny Amsterdam.
Reading Codrus, comedy yokel figure is...
Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm just... I feel bad for the people who haven't been here for the previous two sessions. Trying to explain the plot to them is going to be just like trying to tie a pretzel with your tongue or something. I don't know.
I'm glad you chose tongue, because that sentence could have gone so many unfortunate ways. Reading Misogonus, the son, or the not desperately nice son, is...
Hi, I'm Lois, a retired academic living in London.
And reading the father of Misogonus, Philogonus, is...
Hi, I'm Alan Scott, based in Suffolk.
Reading one of the servants, Oenophilus, is...
Alexandra, and I'm really excited about the missing bits for no reason.
Reading wife to Codrus and interpreter and storyteller extraordinary, Alison, is...
My name's Elizabeth, and I'm an author based in Romford.
Reading Isbell, new character for today, is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good. I'm a historian living in Yorkshire.
Reading another new character for the day, Madge, is...
Aliki, Chapple, actor and translator living in Lancashire.
Reading Eupelas, sort of friend to the father figure in the play, is...
Rachel Nicole, actor in New Jersey, laughing at the jokes in the chat.
And reading Crito and Orgalus today is...
Briony, Sparrow, actress in East Midlands.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading what few stage directions we have. We are going from Act 3, Scene 2 today. This is a scene overall involving two characters, Cacurgus, vice-servant type figure, often referenced to because of it, as Will Summer, because of his semi-impression of that natural fool. Cacurgus, who is going to be chatting in a moment to Misogonus, who will enter in a bit. But first, enter Cacurgus.
It's time, I trow. He has been a prattling with these old fools. Get ye hence with a hot murrain to you all three. That old lizard has no more wit than the weathercock of Pulls. A shame take him, had he none to make his pack horse but me. I had not worse luck of a day, I cannot tell when. Must that old coax tell him this news with a pestilence? I was cursed, I think truly, when that message I began. It's now out. I can never be kept more in silence. This has been kept in hugger-mugger a good while. There has been blind talk of another son. I dare say this 7 year. But what sayest thou to thyself, Cacurgus? Hast thou no wile? Aha, it shall go hard, but ere we sleep, we'll have somewhat here. I'll trust all curmudgeonly foxes worse for his sake, and had been happy. I might have given him his answer and sent him away, and he will not deny it again. His arse shall surely quake. It will make the old trot believe his skin I will flay.
And enter Misogonus.
Did no man meet Will Summer here this way late? I've longed to talk with the counterfeit fool this se'night.
Will Summer? Nay, nor Will Winter neither. Tell ye, I'll none of that. Ye'st call me by my Christian name, or I'll not answer. By Sanct Bennet.
Ah, art thou so near, Cacurgus? I'd thought thou hadst not heard. What news canst thou tell me of now, my old child?
Heavy news for you, I can tell you, of a cowling card. It will make you pluck in your horns, and you were ne'er so wild.
Pluck in my horns, sayest thou? He plucks in my horns, has good luck. I overcame my father, man, with all his front.
In faith, I know a thing will cool you, and ye were ne'er such a wild buck. It's no matter for your father, you must bide yet a worse brunt.
There's ne'er a Goliath in this shire that shall scare me. My heart is even big enough, man, to fight with a score.
There will be in this shire shortly that will go near to mar you, and you take not heed, I tell you, I'll turn you out a door.
He that can do that, Cacurgus, is not in Italia. But tell me who thou meanest without more ado.
He that will do that, Misogonus, is in Apollonia. Oh God. There's one, I tell you, that will quickly you cow.
If he were a giant, could scarcely bring me under. But name him, that for him myself I may prepare.
Leave such words, it's but a folly thus to thunder. Your brother, your father's son and heir.
Tell'st thou me of a brother? Thou knowest I have none. If any come and say he's my brother, I'll cut his weasand.
I know, yes, you know yourself you have one. Ye can, else the land is surely his own.
What treachery have we here? What villain was he that told my father of this?
He that told him, and it had pleased God, I would he had laid all the beer. An old crabtree-faced carl, because a sow he did miss.
I have heard a whispering of such a thing, I must needs confess. What thinkst thou? I hope it's but a tale of a tub.
Whether he be alive or no, I know not, yet had one, it's questionless. If he be, Liturgus brings him as sure as a club.
Well, is Liturgus gone for him? So, what shall I then do? I'll go seek him myself for it, come out what will.
Why, knew you not that he went forward a fortnight ago? It's not best for you to fight, lest ye one another kill.
What should I do then, Cacurgus? What remedy is left? My heart would even burst for anger if I should so be served.
I would work some while if I could catch the old mother's eft. If I take him right, he'll have that he hath deserved.
But what shall I be better? Canst thou him defeat? Help me now, Cacurgus, and while thou livest, thou'lt never lack.
What if the deeds of his lands I get away with a fleet? You need not care a pin if you hat in white and black.
Fie, they're under a dozen locks, thou canst never them get. Try some other way rather, if thou hast opportunity.
Get you hence and let me alone. I will play some fete. I will work him some displeasure. Be bold, and that speedy.
I will repair to her then a while from whence I came, and come see thee again within less than an hour.
And exit Misogonus.
If that old neat should scape scot-free for this, it were a shame. I'll dust him for't one day, if it lie in my power.
And we go straight into Act 3, Scene 3. It's a continued scene. Enter Isbell, Busby, and Madge.
Come, gossip, let's hie betime, lest all the sows be gone. Why should not we have some as well as that chattering jay? If we should not, all the back house would be too little for her alone. We can say as much in this claration as she can say.
Gossip Busby, I'd go full fain and make my position as well as I could. But here, in my chops, I have such a pain that I cannot conceal it, though I would.
I have tongue enough for us both, Madge. I lack but a good felt, for to tell him how 'twas, I can serve the turn. Prithee, do not so much as lend me but thine e'en, thy red cap and thy belt. I's ne'er look him in the face, else my apparel is so worn.
Saint Mary Magdalene, Tib, mine is but old. But if thou couldst help me away with my toothache, I'll get thee. Tib, there it is. Hold, 'cause I would myself a speculation make.
Some physicary I'll seek, but I'll have some remedy. I'll bestow a penny for casting thy piss.
Nay, it shall ne'er be cast, though I ne'er speechify. I would rather myself be speechless.
There be some good men, and one could light on them, which would do it for God's sake, without prying in a piss pot.
If I could get such a one, I were a happy woman. I could have once said our Lord Psalter by rote.
Good Lord, what great diversity and alteration is there in the manner of diverse people and countries. I am here derided of the men of this nation, because my garment is pied not like to their guise. If they were in my country, all men would them scorn, because they are all in one hue like a company of crows. For of the best gentlemen their diverse coloured garments be worn. We must delight in pied gowns, and little care for hose. I am, by my country and birth, a true Egyptian. I've seen the black Moors and the men of Sind. My father was also a natural Ethiopian. I must needs be very cunning. I have it by kind. I have been one, and 20 mile beyond the moon. 4 years together I touched the sun when it rose. Where I was born, when 'tis midnight, it is here noon. I was 5 years with them, that with their heels upward goes. By profession I am a very good physician. Before I could speak, I had learned all arts liberal. I am also a very skillful soothsayer and magician. To speak at one word, I can do all things in general. There is no sickness, disease, or malady, but I can tell only by viewing of the hand. For every grief I can prescribe a present remedy. Of all things that grows in the Indian land, I can cure the ague, the measles, and the French pock, the tetter, the morphew, the bile, blain, and wheel, the megrim, the madness, and the hitchcock. The toothache, or anything at one word I can heal. My head is so full of this supermundled science that I am fain to bind it, lest my brains should crow. This nightcap was given me when doctor I did commence. Good Lord, what things do I know? Neither do I care for any great gains winning. I do all for God's sake, and not for any gain. And before I do deal, if any man doubt of my cunning, that they may note, I will tell their thoughts certain, for by my liberality I have in physiognomy. I can tell the cogitations and thought of the mind. My great speculation I have in astronomy, both things past and things to come of men I do find. Therefore, if there be any man or woman in this country that would have their pains and aches now cured, let them come. I will judge of it only by palmistry, which if I can, that I can help them, they may be assured.
What a wise man 'tis! What a learned, what a far-travelled man 'tis!
Oh, Lord. One would take him for a fool by his gown and his cap, and he is too full of profundities as any in the whole world.
One would think us so practiced. I came from God Almighty's lap. One him has been at Cambridge. Good Lord.
By the Meckins, Madge, I'll go putting on my holiday face, and question with him for thy toothache, and thou'st tarry behind. God speed you, Master Physicary. God save your doctorship's grace. I beseech you, to my simplication, let your ears be inclined.
Good wife, did you not hear when I made protestation of my intelligible experience in the art medicinal, to the intent to heal good folk, and I showed that declaration? For I can now all things by cunning artificial. You come not for yourself, but for a neighbour of yours, which is pained in her mandible with a worm-eaten tooth. Sister, come near, sister, I will help you within this 3 hours. If you doubt me, I will tell your very thought in good sooth.
I talk so father-millerly. 'Twould do thee good at heart-root. Come, Tib, I see by him he's a wise man indeed.
I'll be your bead woman, Master Doctor, and you'll do it. Teach me, if you can. Do it with speed.
If I can, says thou, why of my cunning dost thou doubt? I'll tell thee all thou hast done since day thou wast born, and even at this present what thou now goest about. If need be, I can prophesy what thou shalt do to morn.
What we intend now, sir. By your skill are you working? We'll say you are an excess doctorable man if you could, if that you can read.
To bear witness, you are now both toward your landlord trotting, that his wife of 2 children at once was brought to bed. But take heed what you do, lest you damn yourself quite. For the one was not a Christian child, as you thought it to be, but a certain fairy there did dazzle your sight, and laid her changeling in the infant's cradle, truly hoping thereby your mistress child to have got, and to leave her changeling there in the stead, which, when she saw in a week she could not, she fetched it away when you thought it were dead. And overthwart neighbour too of yours, now elate, tells him whither 'twas sent, as though true it had been. But she's a gate, you know well, and a very make. And the fairy from that day to this was ne'er seen. But take you heed both, I give you good warning, lest you be stricken here by either lame or... If you will, by conjuration, I will show you a thing.
Nay, good master, leave your magication craft. It is as true, I know, as if it had come out of God's own mouth.
Give defiance to you, I'd rather you tell me some drink for my tooth.
Dost thou believe that I can heal thee now? Speak if thou dost. Thy pain within 3 hours I will qualify.
I am sure if you list, you can mend my toothache, and I quest you to do it and not dallify.
Open thy mouth then, let me feel with my instrument what is the cause that works by this pain.
You gag me by God's testament. Muck fork does make me so game.
I have cured 1,000 of these in my days. This I can cure with the value of farthing. Know you not a herb called envy that grows by the highways, and hippocras that grows in every garden?
I know them well. I use them every day in my porridge. Go, gossip Busby, this fellow hits the nail on the head.
And wert not good also to take a little borage? She might fare well, so and crumble them with bread.
Fine, oh, take them, I tell you, with 2 drams of lechery, 1 dram of Venus hair, infidelity, and stone rue.
Do you not mean that herb which we country folks call cyphery? I ne'er went to leechcraft, but I know that to be true.
That same, mix all these with an ounce of potpourri, then boil them in maiden's water with a fire of haste.
That's a weed, I think, we lay people call poppy. Is that not that you mean, which the good corn doth waste?
That, tat, by my faith, thou hast good skill. Use them but one night, and thou mend'st then apace. And hereafter I will warrant thee thou'st never feel ill. So be it thou ne'er usest aqua vitae and herbagrace.
You've even very liked me. What do you take for your pains? Well, I think I speak a great deal, but better than I did.
Sister, I do not respect my market or any gains, but only the commodity of them that be afflicted.
Now God and our Blessed Lady reward you for your good physication. I'll pray for you truly and betterly for't once a day.
If thou beest asked, as I know thou shalt, by prognostication, whether he had 2 sons or no, look, thou say'st nay.
Nay, as sure as that good face of yours I do behold, I nay it again, and 1,000 times nay it, and before I say it, I'll both rail and scold. Well, restrain me, but I will ne'er say it.
Ye do a godless and uncharitable work. Well, for this time I must depart.
And exit Cacurgus.
Close, and 'twere to the great Turk.
Me too, Madge. Art thou better than thou wert?
And exeunt Isbell and Madge. Lots of interesting things about this scene. So, initially we're sort of going, Madge has a stutter or something, but it seems to be to denote that she's got toothache. So I'm wondering about in performance precisely how that it functions and whether that's coming across that way. So there's that's a really interesting one about this idea that being careful. I'm not sure how that works. I'm finding that very odd. And then we've got Cacurgus's great oration there to basically bamboozle them into thinking that he is some great physician, and goes off on a something of a tangent, which raises all sorts of weird Cacurgus issues. So yeah, I mean, the first scene we looked at, Cacurgus is very much doing exposition function, and then being sent off to change the expert witness testimony. He's going to rob this situation. Thoughts from the room? There's a lot here that may or may not work, and I'm not really quite sure what to do with it. Rachael first.
I don't know, for Madge's thing, it seems like she she's saying, she's repeating the syllables on like words for that could come out as like, Gog's blood or something. It could be like, you could play it like she's on the verge of cursing, or something like that. I don't know, or that she's taking an in breath that like for the pain, like so, like something like that. If to come across, I don't know.
Yeah, it's Helen.
Yeah, it could also be that she's in fact not saying the syllables of the word. She's saying oh. So a great deal. Better than I did. Would be one way of doing it.
Yeah, and it's because they are constantly different. So I'm wondering about the shape the mouth is making, about the choice of the sounds that she's stumbling on, and how that functions. Whether it's actually systematic, whether it's sort of untidy. Other thoughts, different thoughts, or the same thoughts, or extensions of those thoughts. Aliki.
I'm really interested in what Isbell is doing in translating his Cacurgus's bad medical advice into decent medical advice. Take that with a spoonful of potpourri. Oh, he must mean poppy. Of course he does. We peasants say it poppy.
Yes.
Yes. And again, we're getting that crossover religious question that we had last time as well, of not knocking Catholicism in passing there. Eric, I saw.
Well, also the sort of, I was going to say something else, but I mean, since we're talking about the medical stuff, wouldn't it be like the sort of old knowledge of sort of midwives and, basically herbalists / botanists who wouldn't actually know what they're talking about, and then you've got the sort of learned doctors who kind of don't really know very much, but just poke people with either needles, make them bleed, and that kind of thing at the time. I'm assuming, I don't know that much about medicine and the history of medicine at this time, but yeah.
Yeah, there's the difference between actual knowledge of the herbs you're working with and theoretical knowledge, which Cacurgus is doing an impression of. So yes, we've got two very different kinds of learning bases going on there. Other thoughts, Lois, Francis, Aliki.
Yeah, I think it's rather touching. I mean, Isbell actually sounds as if she knows quite a bit about herbs, but is so modest in the face of this great doctor that she's putting it all in this very, we humble peasants think it might be this. But also, I think this might be a Cambridge play. I mean, that way that they hear Cacurgus explain that he knows absolutely everything and think he must come from Cambridge in that case.
Yes, I did say earlier in the week there were associations with Cambridge, and that might give us a more of a level for where the rustic accent might be set as well, into the wilds of East Anglia or further north, depending on your personal choice. Francis.
Yeah, on a completely different note, I thought it was very interesting at the beginning of the scene. Where Isbell said something like, well, I'm not dressed up to meet Philogonus. And that kind of echoed that bit in the previous scene, which we did yesterday, where Codrus said to Alison, look at the state of you. There seems to be this idea that you have to be all dressed up to meet your betters in this play.
Aliki, I think, was next.
Going back to Madge, I'm not entirely sure whether she agrees to do what Cacurgus says or not, because she says, nay, I nay it and nay it 1,000 times nay it, and before I'll say it, I'll never say it. I'm not actually sure she's agreed with him, although the structure of the scene makes it feel as if she does. I don't really see it in her lines. And I'm also interested in his changeling story. Like, is this a plausible story? It was actually a fairy changeling. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Sure, it was the fairies.
Yeah.
Tamara, Francis.
Well, I was just going to say about the fairy changeling thing. When I was reading it, I thought, oh, that's because that's folklore. So it's not. And I think I recently heard something about somebody trying to kill their wife not that long ago because they thought she was a changeling. So it's not that far-fetched that people would have bought into this.
Francis, then Helen.
Yeah, I thought that whole story about the changeling was just I thought it was very cunning of Cacurgus to sort of take advantage of the sort of superstition of these less educated folk, shall we say. Because I think he would, I just assume they're very superstitious and they would have completely have believed this story.
Helen.
Yeah, I've been investigating a guy called the Charmer of Swine. Swine is a place, and they're trying to establish he's being charged with murder, and they're trying to establish what he's actually been doing, and they get all these endless stories about people he's cured and people he hasn't cured, and they ask him where he gets his cures from, and he's quite open about it. He bought them from the fairies. And this appears to be fair enough.
Well, so long as money's changed hands, that's fine. I mean, you'd hate to have tried to trick the fairies, then terrible things would happen. Eric.
Yeah, I was going to say that it's interesting how Cacurgus either dresses himself up as or sort of pretends to be a doctor, and lots of other things, because we've seen that in like Vice play, as we've been saying, Vice and Virtue plays and that kind of thing, and it seems that because this would be, I think we were talking about how this is like in the in-between time between like sort of, transitional basically. So it would be interesting to think of this as sort of characters becoming more and more sneaky and becoming more, I don't know, just sort of picking up on disguise as not in a morality sense, but in a sort of, carrying that forward basically.
Lois.
Yeah, that's really odd, actually, the way he comes in. I mean, obviously, I suppose one needs some kind of stage direction, but I think he must still be wearing his sort of multicolored fool's garment because he makes up this whole soliloquy, which begins with how, where I come from, we all believe in party-colored clothes. It looks really funny to see all these people wearing just one color here. And so he must be doing that because he hasn't managed to get a costume. And even that bit about how he has to bind his head to keep his brains from coming out, that's presumably this fool's cap thing. He may have done something to it, but he's, it had 2 ears on it, and he commented on it earlier. It's odd because of course it's not going to work with people who know him, but then he's never seen these two women before, I suppose.
Yeah, he's thinking on his feet without resources. So, they would know him for a fool by his gown and his cap, but because he came up with a plausible excuse, he is obviously this great learned master.
Yes, I think he must have got some sort of disguise around his face because they are gossips with his wife.
Mm-hmm. No, not his wife.
No, he hasn't got
No,
one.
with Codrus.
Oh, Codrus' wife. Sorry. The play had managed to confuse me considerable. Yes, of course, they don't know him.
Okay, we're going to move forward unless anyone has anything desperately want to say. Oh, Aliki does. Aliki.
I'm sorry, but we've talked about how incorrect this play is. Is he possibly in blackface?
I unless he's picked something from he's using mud from the ground or something to just do it in that moment, possibly. But
a cinder or something, yeah.
Yeah.
Because he talks about being from various places where people are darker skinned than they tended to be in England at the time.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether he's just throwing that in as a reference about looking at and not looking like what you do, if that makes sense. Because he's saying, I don't look like, or these other people are, I'm just confused by
where
what
I
people
come
wear.
from, this is what doctors look like.
Yeah. So maybe. I genuinely don't know. There's a lot about Cacurgus' shtick generally, which is just really, really problematic throughout, which brings all sorts of interesting thoughts about who this person is. But we'll leave that for another time. Any other thoughts, Helen?
No, it was something that you were going to leave for another time. I had an idea.
Let's hold on to those to the end and
Yeah.
try and remember them at the end when we'll inevitably have forgotten all of these things. We go into Act 4, Scene 1. There are lots of people in this scene. Some of them have apparent exits and entrances. Some of them do not. Some of them have additional notes, like 6 times or 4 times after their lines. So we've got people off stage. I think Alison and Codrus are off stage saying things. So Alison and Codrus, be aware that you have got lines coming up, even though you haven't got entrance lines, and see what that's going on. I think that's off stage, Eric. By the way, in the chat, I think we.
Yeah, it's unclear because then
Yeah, but I think both Alison and Codrus are saying stuff off stage. They're saying it repeatedly. Let's find out if the scene gives us clues on that, or whether that's something that's wrong. So I say, Alison, Codrus, you've currently got dialogue before you enter, unless it turns out that you have the character designation's wrong, and we'll find that out as we read it. This is as much an editorial meeting as we try and figure out how the play should be laid out as we go. So at the moment, the only people on stage are Philogonus and Eupelas, who enter now.
Now surely, Philogonus, but that I know God's providence, in showing mercy to his servants is always usual. This wonderful thing I could not credit any human evidence. It is so strange that otherwise I would perceive in denial.
Indeed, Eupelas, but that we must not marvel at the works of the Lord. It is so strange that the like, I think, were never heard. If we should all histories of ancient writers record, neither, I dare say, the like shall be seen afterward.
Praised be the Lord that ever is in mercies most rich, and within his appointed time his chosen folk doth aid.
In time indeed, Eupelas, or otherwise I'd been in the backhouse ditch. Yea, rather, if he had not helped, in grave I had been laid.
I greatly do rejoice that yet at length your sorrows are dispatched, and that double and treble joys your calamities do requite.
I joy likewise, but under hope my chickens are not hatched. I nilled account of him as yet, for so presume I might. Methinks one could say my son doth come. My spirits are in a damp. Now truly, Alison hath waited at the town's end for his coming.
I'll go tell my master. I'll go tell my master. I'll go tell my master. I'll go tell my master.
Without doubt, Philogonus, my heart is in a sudden cramp. Behold, is not this Father Codrus which is hither running?
So yes, they were indeed down the street going, "The sun is coming, the sun is coming," and here enter Codrus.
What'll you give me, master, and I'll tell you news of your son? Will you not say Father Custer is a good boy and you come at town's end?
Will say that. Now all my joys and heart's ease have begone, and I'll give thee enough to spend 1 year. Spend while thou wilt spend.
I am sure Liturgus has come, for I saw his brindle dog, and our Alison saw a brace of striplings come with him.
It is impossible this silly thing should either lie or cog. Without doubt, Philogonus, in that he spoke you may believe him.
And here enter Isbell and Madge.
Now, Marjorie, you have served me a trust, yea, mass, would all thy teeth were out, and had not been for thee, saddle-backed grumbold, I had got well by this shrift.
Would thy tongue were out, withered witch. Didst not thou keep all the rout? It's all about town faults. Give what sense to Sir John at last shrift.
Were't not long of thee, Fussex, that I went not to my master, would have been in my way 20 shillings. Thick, thou worm-eaten moral.
Look at me! Thou liest, that thou dost. 'Twere long o' the water. Didst not go of thine own mind, thou grumble, blub, 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 blub.
The devil cast him and thee too, like vile wretches as... I'll neither trust thee, nor such as he is for it, while I... Ah!
Oh, thy tongue's made of the devil's thing, or else thou would, that scurvy scrub, won't ne'er leave thy
Do you mark, master, how yon covetous scolds here tried? It grieves them that they did not tell, because now it's known.
That I may hear what they'll say. I'll stand a little aside. Eupelas, I would we had some chairs here to sit down.
Would I had my settle in my bow stool, you should both sit. You shall see how wisely I'll stand in them. I could have jobbed to Loggets once.
And I were as young as ere I were, that Scottish knavery I would quit. And you too, grandma.
Oh, would you? I might chance rattle your bones.
Why, how now, neighbours, what's the matter? Where's your womanhood? Leave this brawling and walling for shame. Come, Tissaris, will you none?
You mought have told us when ye had gone yet, and he'd had any neighbourhood. We shall get nothing for you now. Yes, a little, with a spoon.
Why, faith, Isbell, what talks is not have passed a couple of shoats, and thou knowest what casualties I had in my beast lost Halomas.
By the Mac, Isbell, I would think I were happy and I could get a couple of old groats, and I would fare the better for it too every day this Christmas.
Bow wow. Why should we have less than he? Are we not the needier? And did not we, when he were born, both rock and cradle him?
Well, and you'll be content, Isbell. I may chance help you to be a breeder, Though I did not, our Alison's senate tonight together did swaddle him.
And enter Liturgus.
Now, you be welcome, Eugonus, as I may say it, unto Laurentum town. Behold, at yon same turret which you see is your father's place.
Oh, my young master is come indeed now, by God's noun. Ken him well, does he not resemble my mistress' inflection in his face?
Oh, shit, me. I'm sorry.
Yes, we had no stage direction for the arrival of Eugonus, so Tamara, you have entered.
Okay.
Yes, Eugonus, your other.
I can say nothing but by information of mine uncle and mine aunt and the testificate.
Oh, hi Jehovah, which doth rule, I believe.
Oh, bugger. I wanted to not blaspheme, that's what happened. O high Jehovah, which dost rule with thy almighty power, all things within the sacred skies, and eke in seas and land, I give to thee, redoubted king, in this so luck an hour, all thanks for that thou hast me placed upon my country sand.
Yet welcome here, home master. Give me your hand. How have you done this many a day? I am glad it's for you, as 'twere either for my Robin or Tom.
This is one Father Custer, my master tenant. He loves you well, I dare say. He was the first man, I tell you, that caused you to be fetched home.
I'm more than half your father, master. I caused you to be fetched by cock and pie. I dissuaded him to send Liturgus for you.
You're welcome to our town. Did ye not remember since I sat by you and watched, when my mistress lay in, and we sang Lullaby Baby and bore ye?
I can say nothing but by information of mine uncle and mine aunt and the testificates which Liturgus from my father did bring.
His remembrance were but slippery then, fool, though he be now all in a flaunt. Wherefore, and you say it will have some probabilition of everything.
Enter Crito.
Well said, Father. Let's have out of hand some undoubted trial. Tell thy master, Philogonus, that he may hear the matter discussed.
Belong, Alison, so methinks with Lionel, with the wanion to my master here thou comest, as thou had no lust.
And enter Alison, as the text gets even more fragmentary as we go along.
Heaven bless him. Has even my mistress face up and down? As bold as e'er I was, by my troth, you should be kissed.
Now quite out of all your knowledge grown, what name I had when I was baptized?
Tom.
You won't let your betters speak before you, Marjorie. Your goodman was but third borrow, as godly as you make it.
Good in your office, I speak by my master's leave. Thou seekst to have all to thee, dost? Thou canst have it all taken.
Give her leave to...
Oh, we seem to have lost Tamara there.
She just corpsed.
Oh dear.
Oh, good. Another edit point to put in, or do we just leave Tamara's reaction here in? Well, I think we might just leave this in. Yeah. I think we might.
I tried so hard not to corpse. Give her leave to speak to Codrus. It mayhap she knows that thou dost. To take thy neighbour's verdict in such a case, thou must not stick.
It speaks in our mother tongue. That you were a good son, well I wot, but I cannot think for it were a vile hard word in Hebrew.
Nay, it was but Greek. Yet, as God would have it, as kind as ye are, you miss Christian once yet, Marjorie.
To Alison, to a whore.
As long as she hits interpretation, though she miss the name, it's no great fault.
No, Mary, but 'tis to say, Hebraics for Greek, 'tis plain doggery.
First letter of your name's new, by the same token of my bottle-faced een. T'other part, as I take it, is e'en much like my young master, Thomas.
By my faith, Alison, that's well remembered. All this is true. Canst thou tell if I name him?
Aye.
How sayest, wert not Eugonus?
Was indeed.
Or so.
Faith, 'twas.
The gods drabs a height, Eugonus indeed.
But can ye tell whether your mistress's son had any privy mark? If you can answer me to this point, I'll say he's his son without fail.
Oh, we can tell. He had a toe, more than he should have. And so can the priest and the clerk.
Shall she, Alison? Shall she take her up for halting? Oh God, I would she were in the jail.
And you be my mistress' son, gentleman. You've 6 toes of the right foot. I have told them, many a time and often, they stand even all bedeen.
It cannot otherwise be. I'm even the same ye talk on, without doubt. And for certainty, if you will, ye'st have my foot seen.
Marry, content, master. Come, a God's name, dance me off your hose. Alison, remember thyself well and take thy mark right.
I'd rather ye would for this time rip them, and so view my toes. I'd be loth to have them plucked off till I go to bed for all night.
Here, Alison, take my penknife then. It's sharp as a razor. Thou ripst it at the seam, and take heed thou hurtst not his foot.
God's blue blood, let's see too, I pray you. What? Were your father a glazier? Let's have some rum too, or else I may chance give thee an arse butt.
How many year ago is since he were born? Can any of you tell? Lay all your heads together and make a true account.
It were after the rising erection of the north. I remember well. Where was Court then, Alison? Let's see how that will mount.
I gathered peas gods at Baal's bush then, I'm sure, and brought them to my mistress when she was with child.
Thou wert neither or the court nor the council speak. Alison, whore, house-faced. Were not Piper's Hill then the Ryfield?
I marry want.
Why, Umbert, then it's at least a score. 3 and 3 and 3 and 3 and 3, and what's all that?
3 is no more. I have it now. He's 20 and 4. Our Tom were born but a year after, I can tell.
This agrees, believe me, too. What would we say?
Why, she is ogre manner. She would tell you though it's 30 and 30 and...
What time of the year were it when your mistress him born?
I'm sure, Alison, when thou camest from her labour, thou wert all...
Custer, dost remember we clemented when she were... And thou best remembered, O St. Clement's Day, I was sent her gossips to seek.
Master, it's true, and we had Penny Doll of the humour of St. Nicholas when she... Yeah, and a good token St. Stephen's Day that year fell just in Christmas week.
Say no more, here's proof enough. Depart you, a God's name, home. I will see that my father shall you liberally content.
Codrus, go tell your master that his son now is come. Ha, here's a letter which his brother from Apollonia hath sent.
Letter, good God, where be my wits? I could once lettered my paternoster. I had sung yet, come spiritual with priest at the kirk, and were howling. And what said my father? What said, eh? May thou be a man one day, Custer. God's blood, I never left my book till I came to the whore cat woollen.
Not another word I could have had, shouldst know, as good as thou. I could have had as upright a fellow as e'er trod on neat's nether.
Why, and all the wenches of the town were earnest and brim of me, thou knowest well enough. When I were in my lustiness there, I had come to me 22 silly bucks together.
Can suffer no longer, Eupelas.
Here he comes.
According to your worship's commandment.
I heard all, Liturgus. A welcome, my son.
Oh, my father.
Oh, my son.
Bless me, my father.
God bless thee, my son. Eternal God, which only guidest the imperial pole aloft, and also this terrestrial globe with all human affairs, through frowning fortune with her force doth tip and turn us oft. Thou can miraculously help thy servants unawares. If 20 tongues and 20 mouths I had to sound thy praise, or if I had King David's vein or Nestor's eloquence, they would not serve me at this time due thankfulness to raise towards me for thy unspeakable and wonderful beneficence. O welcome home, my son, my comfort and my joy. Thou art the length ne'er of my life, and the cure of my care. Here of my house possession take, and all my lands enjoy. I think myself as happy now as if a duke I were.
Cause have I, Lord, to rejoice whom thus thou hast preserved, and lands even from my youth far from my native soil. Neptune's rage and Aeolus' force, I might have well been starved. Not being ready at need to help at every broil. And now, when I'm home reduced, such a father, who tendereth me so lovingly that one me he doth bestow his lands, and counts it happiness. He is to me so kind. Oh, father dear, what shall I say or do?
I am able to speak no more. My heart for gladness so doth melt. Eupelas, I pray you and the rest to accompany us in.
The like inward motion of all your well-willers here is felt. Our Gaudiumus, I speak for us all, is now to begin.
But before they can go off stage, people are going to come on stage, and now we just need to unpack the mess that was that scene. It's interesting because we've got similar games going on that we've had earlier. We've once again got Alison and Codrus just going slightly on a tangent towards the end there. I just quite like thinking, I could have married anyone, you know. Yeah. At which point Philogonus just goes, I can suffer no longer, and I'm not quite sure if that's out of desperation to speak to his child, or no, not another argument between these particular set of these.
Silly books as well. I was like, what's that? What are silly books?
Yeah. Right, there were 22 silly books. Yes.
Yeah. Lois.
Yeah, I think I might know what syllabooks are. I think it might be syllabubs. I mean, given that this is a country setting, lots and lots of fair young maidens coming to him, offering him syllabub with the hope of getting to know him better. I think that's what he's thinking about.
Because we've got at the beginning this servant. I asked in the chat, I can't remember, but we've had at least one, if not more, play where you've got the servant rushing on to be first to say, yeah, he's coming, give me a reward, thank you very much for passing on that news, and that sort of competition element there, and this lengthy test to make sure it's the right person, so they're trying to figure out how old he is. And they because he's got an extra toe, so he doesn't have to take his hose off. They just cut and rip the bottom of it to demonstrate just the toe. So it's sort of it's all just wonderfully ridiculous.
But they do it on the seam.
Yeah, well, in case they have to do it more than once. Yes, it's an expensive bit of business otherwise. Francis.
Yeah, that whole business with trying to find some authentication that he was the true son just reminded me of the importance of being earnest. I kept waiting for somebody to come running on with a handbag.
Yes, the line is immaterial. Helen.
It's very, very familiar territory to me. Quite often, a case at law would depend on how old someone was as to whether they were of age when they signed a deed or did something. And so people who were around when he was born, it's usually a he, would be called on to give evidence because they were witnesses. They knew when she was pregnant, and they would evidence it by saying, that was the year my boy Tom was born, and it was the year after the rising in the north. Presumably we're talking about 69, but it may be an earlier rising. I mean, it may be the 36.
Yeah, it's what's the other thing? Just the fact that the manuscript gave us a wonderful gag when a line's completely absent and say, "What's your name?" blank space Tom.
Which in fact turns out to be her. Her child's name is Tom.
But it's still beautifully structured as a gag, even though it's not actually designed that way or doing what it's supposed to be doing. But it read beautifully, so I think we should just note for the viewer at home, it's not structured that way. That wasn't a dramatic pause. This just was no line. Lois.
Yeah, I think there's another bit that that line of, was your father a glazier? I think I got that. They're all crowding around to look at his toes. It must be quite funny, everybody on stage trying to get a good look, and then somebody annoyed at not being able to see and says, was your father a glazier? Which must mean you think you're of glass, do you, that I can look through you? I mean, I can't see what else it could mean.
Yeah, I'm liking that. Tamara.
That's actually quite funny because it's an actual saying in Bavarian.
Oh.
Was your father somebody who worked with glass? As in, I can't see, get out of my way.
Ah, right.
Oh, right. So, I'm liking that. I'll just see if that's been noted elsewhere as a thing. Of course, it then obviously gives us the chance to give me some room, or I'll give thee an arse butt, which is just, again, another one of those elements in this play that feels weirdly more modern than it should. I just want to ask the room, especially to a degree, Briony as well. Crito, who the hell is he? He's guy.
I was literally going to ask that in this little discussion bit, but then I thought no, because surely you should know who he is. Surely everybody else must know who he is. I'm glad it's not just me.
I was just going because he comes on and just starts saying this dialogue, and I'm just wondering: is there a missing bit of text? Is there some explicating who the hell this bloke is?
He seems to be some sort of authority figure because they do seem to be deferring to his judgment and wisdom.
Well, yeah, I'm wondering whether he's a traveller with Eugonus. The notes I've been looking in other in various books are saying that he's not from around these parts, so that he's an outsider of some description. So I don't know if he's come with Eugonus from somewhere else.
I thought he was Philogonus' lawyer. I don't know why.
Aliki, then Eric.
Etymologically, his name is derived from the Greek for judgment, so I thought he might be a lawyer or a judge or some sort of authority figure.
Eric?
Yeah, I thought he was sort of coming along with Eugonus, like you thought, because, he does this whole thing of, here's a letter, and, you have to go deliver it, and that whole thing. And then you've got the whole shtick of, Codrus going, yeah, totally, but I haven't had a book since I was married. And it's like, I could have been a scholar, but I'm not.
Well, presumably that was during the service. He got moderately close to a Bible. Other thoughts? The scene...
It's rather funny.
Say again, Elizabeth?
I think it's rather funny. I was like chuckling to myself as we were going along. And even with the missing parts, I think it does have a sense of comedic timing and humour in it.
Oh yeah, and it's full of some wonderful lines and just little gags but again, it's so busy that actually it's very hard for us to unpack here. It's one where it feels like there's a lot of bustle going on. Lois.
Yeah, I think it's delightful. I think even in a modern production, the way that everybody is trying to get the dates right by remembering, saints' days or whatever. Surely that must be a gag, the thing about St. Stephen's Day falling in Christmas week. I mean, it always does, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought we'd established that Codrus is not the brightest, but yeah, it's interesting though, because that's probably the way that dates were estimated at the time. I'm guessing. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure they were. That's what's so nice about it. I think even in a modern production, people would get a kick out of that, just hearing the way they put it all together from all these funny memories.
Well, that's the thing, if we are trying to remember when things happen, saying X, when did X happen? You're not going to say, oh, yes, that was on the 23rd of June, or you don't tend to remember. You'll remember, oh, it was immediately after such and such's wedding, wasn't it? And yeah, no, we hadn't gone on holiday yet. This is why this last year has been total chaos for trying to remember when things happened, because there are no particular markers. The only markers we've got is lockdown. At the moment, it was between lockdown number 1 and 2. I remember it so well because I went out slightly more often to get food. Francis?
Yeah, all of that sounded very familiar to me because my mother used to do that. We'd say, oh, when did that happen? She'd say, well, yeah, I was pregnant with Nicholas at that time, or I was pregnant with John, one of my brothers. And so, and I think, yeah, it felt very natural, all of that.
So even if the specifics are not the sort of general game that people are that this scene is playing is familiar to us, and I think that's very nice. I like that. Other thoughts, Eric?
I was just wondering about because obviously Codrus says whore a lot. I was just wondering if that's like a sort of descriptive word or just an insult as we know it.
It can be more gendered than depending on context. In this kind of context, it does seem to be mostly aimed at his wife. So in that sense, but there are plays where it does get bandied around a lot and quite indiscriminately in terms of who it's addressed at. So I think in different contexts it has a slightly different level of intensity depending on how it's being played. I certainly think I'd probably massage that in a modern production though. We did that, I think, with Gamma Gurton's Needle. There was quite a bit of that in there as well that we trimmed or moved a few around to take the edge off. So yes, basically. Anything else? We're going to read on to the end of the fragment. I think I may pause, but we probably won't. There are lots of little gaps here coming up. One or two quite big ones, as it were, and various other little holes. But we have reached a moment of crisis for the return of the prodigal son. Everybody's doing all this business, and then enter Misogonus, Orgalus, and Oenophilus. So Misogonus and his two servants enter crashing into this party. Everybody else is on stage still. Act 4, Scene 2.
God's precious body, this counterfeit skip-thrift, is come already. Draw your weapons like champions and keep him from possession.
Liturgus, is this my brother thou talk'st on, that come this way so heedy? Lord, what meaneth he? Will he bar my father from his habitation?
Away, away, thou brainless fool! Wilt thou ne'er be wise? Stand out of my way, wag halter, or I'll breach thee naked.
Whatsoe'er he be that challenges anything here, I'll indict him at the size. I'll keep you from setting a foot within this threshold as stout as ye make it.
Alas, brother, I come for no lands. I come to see my father, aye, and to do my duty unto him, as it doth me become.
Brother, thou land leaper, thou runagate rogue, aye, brotherest me. By all the devils in hell, I will surely thee thrum.
Fie upon thee, Misogonus. Wilt thou not yet be wiser? Shame the devil rather, and repent thee of thy wickedness.
Hang an thou wilt, knave, I care not. I bear card and a dicer. I'll ne'er know thee for my son hereafter, because thou art so graceless.
What's Trunnion, Alison? Go thy ways and fetch me hither my goose spit. Sognus will never be well till he has someone is blood out.
Good masters both, let me request one thing at your hands yet. You've to forgive your son, sir, and you to do your duty, as ye ought.
So he'll ask me forgiveness. I'll pardon this once him. I'm content, and he shall have a child's part too, for all his stubbornness.
A child's part, quoth ye, and ask forgiveness? Nay, soft, I ne'er yet that will am I now come to my child's part. Nay, then ye'st have more frowardness.
Go, shake thy heels then with a devil's name. Come, follow me, my we'll be merry within. I'll ne'er take so much thought as I have done.
How you let them slip by you, ye hedge creepers. Come, I'll teach you to... Did I trust you to keep this way, and you let them be gone?
Yes, indeed. I'm having missed the you let me be gone. I forgot to do the stage direction. Basically, everybody leaves. Leaves Misogonus on stage with his two servants. They've had enough of him. Fare thee well.
Hold your hands when you're well, sir. What man ne'er be so? It is a shame for ye. Would ye have us to do that yourself?
Ye may fly up to the roost with Jackson's hens, come. Go sing Benedicite. Give me one blow by the mast.
Aye, ye henardy knaves, you cry me a mercy, or I'll... What ye, coistrels? Answer ye me thus, your...
As far as I see yourself may now go a delving, a begging. We're worthy to be entertained at.
Are you in your pilot's voice still? I'll not take't as I did. Shall needs serve, I'll serve for some vantage, I will.
You catching caterpillars, either do hereafter as I shall ye bid, or else avoid, even presently, and get ye hence to the devil.
Marry, there would I hat. Come, Oenophilus, I know whither to go. There's a gentleman within this mile and half hath sent us for thrice.
There's ne'er a gentleman in this shire but will be glad of the worst of us two. If they would not, we're able to live, man, with cogging at cards and at dice.
And exit the two servants. Misogonus now is alone.
How say ye to these vipers? Have I brought them up to this end? When they have trained me to this state, then like white liver jacks to fly. If God be God, I'll be revenged, though all that I have I spend. Happen what will, ton of them, or my brother, shall surely die. What Hercules could abide to be thus trodden under foot? The devil's asleep, I think. Heart, all goes against here. To humble myself to my father now, it would nothing me boot. And to go to law with this newcomer, I should be ne'er the near. God, oh devil, oh heaven, oh hell, my heart now rents in twain. It comes. I shall die in desperation. To hang myself, surely, I think now I must be fain. I have sinned so much that I'm quite past hope of salvation.
And exit Misogonus. I was going to move straight on, but I think we should just briefly pause there for the drama of this scene. As Misogonus, basically having been frozen out completely by everybody, turns on his servants. There seems to be physical violence going on during that very fragmented bit. I don't know how much physical violence there is going on there. And then Misogonus is giving in to wanhope at the end. It's despair. He's more like his father than he knows. He just goes head straight for despair and lamentation. Very much father's son. Any thoughts from the room before we move on? Lois?
I'm not sure if there's physical violence. I mean, I think he's used to being able to order them around, and I'm not sure they would hit him even in the present situation, but they suddenly have lost all respect for him now that he has no money, and they're just chucking him overboard, really.
Yeah. Oh yes, they've definitely gone. There's no money here. There is nothing more to be squeezed out of him.
Yeah.
Helen?
Probably a child's portion would be anything that wasn't part of the main estate. It wouldn't. Chances are it would be very small indeed. The way the English inheritance laws were, and to some extent still are, the essence was to keep all the property as closely together as possible.
Okay, we're going to move on unless I see additional thoughts. Before we do, just Act 4, Scene 3, we have Cacurgus returning, and we have a number of indications in the script that coming on, speaking very loudly 10 times, I Lord, and how shall I do? The same number, 10 times again. And then well a day, only 6 times for that. Undone, same number for that 6 times, and then in a lower voice for the Latin, I think. So this is something of a tour de force speech of lamentation, I think. Somewhat damaged in places, certainly towards the end it gets very, very damaged. So let's hear it for Cacurgus. Interpret it as you will. You don't have to go you don't have to count. If you lose count,
I was going to say, do you want me to do all of them?
No, I think if you get a proc in the general area, but nice and quickly, and see how it goes.
Oh Lord, oh Lord, oh Lord, oh Lord, oh Lord, oh I Lord, I Lord, I Lord, I Lord, I Lord, how shall I do? 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 Well a day, 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 well a day. I am undone. Oh, tanquam castrato, procorum vociferarum emunge nasum et singultis clama aliquando. I be turned out of service now, everybody says. And why, Mary? Because I have been an old servant in the house, trusty and true. When I do all that I can for 'em, they make me a fool in my old days. They'll have the old fool no more. Now they say they'll have a new. What were I best to do now, sirs? Which one can tell? Is there any good body among ye will take me in for God's sake? And there'd be a gentleman here would have a fool with him dwell, let him speak, and my word, shall a very fool take. And I might be but wintered this year, I would ne'er care. God help thee, William, now thou'rt put to thy need. Will nobody take pity on a stray fool? Here long enough I may stare, and there were yet a crier to help me at a proclamation to read. Is there ne'er a cry among you? Good Lord, what luck 'tis! And you knew my properties somebody would have me, I'm sure. I'll cry as well myself as I can, and I pray you pardon me, and I dare swear it would win your heart, and ye heard me, but woe is. If there be any gentleman or any gentlewoman in town or in the country that will, for Saint Charity, will have a stray fool, one is here on this stool, that can peel, that can chair, and that can peck pies, that can rock a cradle, and that can bear babel, that can gather sticks, that can chop leeks, that can turn spit, that can by the fire sit, that can ring a bell, and that can tales tell, that can whoop at noon and dance when dinner's done, that can wash dishes, and that can make rings o' rushes, that can hold a candle, and that can babies dandle, that can thresh malt, that can chop salt, that can hold his finger in a hole and thereby linger, that can lay down maidens' beds, and that can hold their sickly heads, that can play at putt-pin, blow point, and ne'er lin, that can know my right hand until 20 and ne'er stand, that can find a titmouse nest and keep a robin ret breast, that can eat and drink and play, sing songs both night and day, that can go to the windmill, and that can do whatsoever you will. And now for all this my task, small wages I will ask, a cap only once by the year, and some pretty coloured gear, and drink whensoe'er I will, and eat my belly full, for more I will not seek. He that will have me, let him speak. What say ye, masters? Speak. Will nobody take me up for poor pity? Nobody care for the poor now. Poor's always thrust to the wall. Fools now may go a begging. Everybody's become so witty. Now in God's name ye would laugh, I think, and ye should see me fall. Alas, good William, how do thy elbows? What, more anger yet? Faith, what remedy? I know none but e'en patience. Aye, but for all that, you will want after a fall to have a good hit. This is even that last time of asking. Speak, and ye'll have me, or hence. Well, ye'll not have me, ye say. Bear witness, then. I'm the... Let me see now, William, which way stands? Is there no wizard among you can tell? Mass, this gear will not cotton. I must another way. Stand, I pray thee. I would but see which. They say it's good luck to seek one's fortune. By God, I think I must play the fool still. We young masters will not away some pelf. When I have done, if anybody will send their wenches to me, I teach a sewing this time, and ye'll have any more for me, ye'st say to yourself.
Exit Cacurgus. Well done. So yeah, we were having great fun in the chat with Giz's job. Yeah, it's a lengthy CV. We're sorry. You're clearly overqualified, I'm afraid, for this particular position. Yeah, it's really interesting. And you know, it's nice he gets his just desserts to a degree, isn't it? Because he's a bit of a git. He's not been a very effective git. I mean, what's interesting is how little he has affected anything in this story. He hasn't, as far as we know, succeeded in making anyone believe that the brother isn't the brother. He tried to turn around the two witnesses, and clearly doesn't. That hasn't impacted the plot yet. Now he's unemployed. He's may have brought the father in time to find the son in the middle of dancing, but that seems like that might not actually really happen, because the father turns up almost exactly at that point. So yeah, it's interesting just simply as an appeal for please dear God give me a job, which at the moment, as someone else has pointed in the chat, not actually a hugely great joke for the acting profession at the moment. Yeah, thoughts on the room, Rachael?
No, I was gonna ask, did they sell like rotten food to throw at him at this time? Like, I feel, I don't know. It seems like something that would be fun to do to this character.
Well, yeah, because he's directly asking the audience, will you give me a job? To people who've seen him being a total bastard. So, I mean, it's giving the audience something to throw. I think wet sponges would be very appropriate. I quite like that. Francis, then Lois.
Yeah, I think that whole speech would be a gift to an actor, because you could have so much fun with the audience doing that speech. Yeah, I really liked it. Really liked that speech.
And it really is calling back to earlier Tudor plays where this kind of ongoing patter thing is a big part of the business of the Vice type character, or in fact any of the really particularly witty, slightly darker characters. It's a set piece that you kind of expect them to be able to do. Lois?
Yeah, there are a couple of bits of shtick that I recognize. I mean, one is a sort of proclamation thing. I think you must have read plays where somebody gets somebody else to read a proclamation and then they turn it into rubbish. I mean, if he does get a volunteer from the audience, he could presumably hand them something to read and then he could turn it into nonsense, that whole bit after oye, oye. And the last line of that, I think, is basically there's some song that ends, if you want any more, you can sing it yourself. And that's pretty much what he's saying at the end there. If you want any more of this, you can do your own patter song.
Yeah, and yeah, we will. I think we either have an Oyez tonight or tomorrow night, because I think it's going to turn up in Susanna. Off the top of my head, spoilers there for anyone who's reading that one. But yeah, it's this business of the number of times he's saying things, and this over the top sort of ness of it all. It's it's a gift. It's a gift. Eric?
Well, also because you can kind of go from like going sort of, oh, woe is me, to sort of like literally desperation. It's got that range of emotion, I guess.
And we've just gone from somebody else being woe is me on a much more desperate or potentially more desperate level. And having people giving into despair is again something else that is does turn up in earlier sort of Tudor plays as well. So it's a not unknown thing as part of this sort of morality tradition of the person who's doing wrong has a moment of despair and then pulls it back from the brink and is able to head for the light. Head for the light. The light is your guide. Lois.
Yeah, and I was just thinking that Philogonus' last line as he goes off, where they're all going to feast indoors, something like, I won't take so much thought as I have done. That could be quite funny, really, given that we've seen so much of his, oh God, I'm in such despair, I'm about to have a heart attack, etc. And then he could just say to the audience, oh, I'm not going to be as depressed as I used to be, and then goes off.
Yeah. Okay, we have, Briony.
I was just going to say the first bit that Cacurgus did with all the repetition and stuff, I could almost see it going completely tongue-in-cheek and having the actor literally sat there counting out on his hands his lamentations and whatnot.
Well, semi-fake lamentations or crying displays of crying that Vice figures do is also something we've come across as well. So there may be a question about how sincere his exclamations are, or is it pity to try and get someone to get him a job, and how is that relationship playing? So I think that's a really good shout. Eric?
Well, you could also do it sort of, like what's called the sort of morning rituals where they kind of, woe is me, and sort of counting it out and stuff, and actually literally counting it out in a different way, though.
Yes, it was funnier the more you did it. Actually, Tamara, there was it did work quite nicely. And it's a very detachable speech as well. I think that's already been noted. A few minor gaps in the text, but oddly enough, when Tamara just started going into interpretive dance, that weirdly worked. I quite liked that. I'm almost tempted not to add any dialogue, fill in the gaps. Just turn it into this weird thing, because actually there's something. I'm someone who I can do. What can he do? It suddenly becomes beautifully obscene. Or whatever is in your mind, depending on who you are. We have one more scene to do this session. I think we should do it. Act 4, Scene 4. Enter Liturgus and Misogonus.
I warrant you, I, Faith Master, I myself dare undertake that your father shall forgive you, even from his very heart. He loves you full dearly, Misogonus, both for your own and my mistress' sake. Doubt you not, he will interpret each thing in the best part.
Ah, what a villain am I, Liturgus, that have him so lightly esteemed, nay, that have reviled him and derided him to his teeth. Oh, Christ, how often have I the blessed name of God's majesty blasphemed, that I am now deservedly in state of perdition, every man saith.
Nay, good master Misogonus, let such fancies go out of your head. Take heart of grace, man. That was but a cast of youthfulness. Though you were by the frailness of your flesh and your sins almost dead, yet you may, as St. Paul saith, by the Spirit of God, live again unto righteousness.
Thou putst me in good comfort, Liturgus. I will never despair. My trust, I thank Christ in his merits, is assuredly fixed. But my life hath been so lewdly that I shall ne'er be without care. I can have no mirth, but it will be with miseries continually mixed.
You harp all of one string. I pray you leave that fond speech. Though your brother he hath found, he loves you ne'er a whit less. I know what he hath said to me, since him home I did fetch. If he knew you repented, you might have at his hands even what ye would wish.
I'm so ashamed that I dare ne'er more come in his sight, and I'm stricken with such a terror that I dare not give him one word.
Ye be as well entertained as ever you were. I'll warrant ye this night, humble but yourself to him, and you shall sit down presently at his own board.
I dare not. Pray thee, speak on't no more. I will rather run quite away before I'll go with thee.
Why, I'll entreat him for you, and then you to bring him out a door. If I do not reconcile you, lay all the blame in me.
God give grace that my father's anger by his persuasion may be mitigated. If he'll now take me to mercy, I'll never hereafter displease him any more. Who would have thought that my courage so soon should have been abated? Ah, vile wretch Misogonus, couldst thou not have taken heed of this before? Oh, all ye race, youthful race of gentle blood, take heed by this my fall. Trust not too much to your heritage and fortune's vain allurements. Take heed of ill company, fly cards and dice and pleasures bestial. Eschew a whore as ye would a scorpion, and beware of her enticements. Children, obey your parents with due reverence and fear. Care not for vain pastimes, for they be but momentary. Scholars, your master's good lessons often read and hear. Beside godliness and learning, all things in this world are but transitory.
And we're going to briefly interrupt this public service announcement with the arrival of some other characters. Enter Philogonus and Liturgus.
Will he, thinks thee, Liturgus?
With all his heart, master.
I have sinned in the sight of God and against you, dear father, most grievously, many times in stubbornly misusing of you, both in word and deed, which now I repent, and the which I lament most bitterly, blah, 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 though unworthy, you to forgive me and help me at my need.
Speak from thy heart, misogynist, my...
And that's all we have. But it does feel like we have, by and large, reached something of an end point of I'm very, very sorry, grovel, grovel, grovel play ends. We've wrapped up what's happened with the nasty character of Cacurgus. We have repentance from Misogonus, who's only been hurting himself. And all the other characters presumably all come on and we have a lovely dance and we all live happily ever after, or not, who knows. Thoughts on that, about where we go with that? Alan, then Lois.
I was confused with this because this scene started with a dialogue between Misogonus and Liturgus. And then we get the entrance of Philogonus with Liturgus.
Yeah, I think
aligned.
He must have exited to go and while Misogonus does his speech to the audience.
Because I'm saying I hope he can bring him round. So he must have gone off stage.
Yeah, to bring him out a door. So I've just not marked in. That's an exit point.
Because I was wondering, in fact, whether the speech designation there was that Misogonus was actually in dialogue with somebody else in the first part of that sequence.
No, I think it is it's the same character. He says he's going to exit and find the father, so it seems like that's what he does.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there are a few characters in this where the way some of them function is a bit interchangeable. Some of this could double down, I'm definitely thinking. Other thoughts, by the way, on this closing, Lois?
Yeah, well, the only question about it, I think, is we've seen so little of Eugonus. We don't know whether he's going to behave like the elder brother in the biblical story, whether he's going to be really annoyed when Philogonus forgives and gets the fatted calf and so on ready, or whether he's just going to be, nice guy the way he seems to be up till now.
I'm voting for evil twin. I'm hoping they're both evil. That's what I'm going for. I'm suspecting that he's just going to turn out to be nice because that's the way these things work. Helen, I think, then Eric.
Me?
What? No. Okay, you weren't waving. Eric.
I was just going to say, can we have it close with I Want to Be Evil by Eartha Kitt or something?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I do feel you could wrap this up pretty much with a music cue and just do the rest in dumb show. I think that would work perfectly well. I mean, there's all sorts of questions we'll get to in a moment about what would be done with this. Any more thoughts about this close? It's very, very conventional morality kind of setup. It's feeling very old school. It's sort of one of the last remaining plays that we've got that are doing this kind of overt morality play styling, albeit in a much more large cast fashion. Francis?
Yeah, I was disappointed with the end. I just found it very rushed and obvious. Yeah, there's no... there seems to be no reason for Misogonus's change of heart, really. It's just part of the mechanics of the play, really.
There's an interesting thing about that, yes, because he's basically just gone, oh, all my privileges have just been taken away. Shit. So how genuinely repentant is he is an interesting point, because all he's done is had his privilege sort of thrown in his face. Briony?
Yeah, disappointed, and at least I don't know if there were more holes at the end, we could have made up our own ending that was better than that. I think his brother should come back and just kill everybody. End. Done. No sequels.
Well,
yeah, Aliki.
What if the brother hires Cacurgus?
Yeah.
Yeah. Other thoughts, Lois?
Well, just that, I mean, I know this repentance is terribly perfunctory, but some of the earlier plays are even worse. I mean, I seem to remember one in which, somebody starts preaching at the guy and he suddenly says, nothing dread I so much as death. Therefore, to repent, I think it is now time. And he does. It's just, we've got to have a repentance. Here it comes.
Yes. So someone literally just mentions the word Christ, and suddenly, oh yeah, him. Oh, yeah, right. Sorry, with you. Yeah, that's happened in a few of the morality plays that we touched on. The sort of slightly later ones as well. That's quite prevalent, where it's very perfunctory. I may even be able to dredge out which one that was, because it was one of the early ones we did when we first started doing these sessions, where we just went, was that it? I remember it well. Eric. You are muted at present.
Yeah, sorry, I clicked on the wrong button there. I was just going to say, so basically, kind of the repentance feels a bit like, it's not to the extreme of, I think it was conflict of conscience or something, where the guy just like repented and then was left to starve or hang himself or die or whatever. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like, yeah, he didn't hang himself. He actually starved to death. So yeah, no spoilers there.
Yeah, we've had a few plays where people go to hang themselves and then suddenly an allegorical figure turns up and says, "No, you will be saved," and that doesn't really happen here. What does it remind me of? Another one, because we've done a couple of say prodigal son plays, and I'm trying to find it. The disobedient child. Now that's an interesting one, because that's on the podcast. It's not on the YouTube feed. The video didn't work, but we read that, and there at the end, the father says, "Okay, you've made a mess of your life. You've married someone in haste. You have no money. I'll bail you out to the tune of your debts, but you're on your own now. Bye." And it's really harsh on the prodigal son figure. It's a slightly different tale than this one, but it's sort of still dancing around the thing. So it doesn't always end up in a sort of happy family reunition. So it could end up in a slightly more. We don't know how far Philogonus is going to go in terms of forgiving him, or how united this family will be. It could be a much more ambiguous ending. We don't have it, so we don't know. Francis.
Yeah, I also had this this feeling with that final public service announcement of Misogonus. He says, I've been doing all this whoring and drinking and carousing and gambling and I've had some fun, but you shouldn't do it. Oh, no, don't do that. I'm just like,
Just say no, children. Just say no. Eric.
Also, actually, if you look at it, it's the father's fault, because from the beginning we're told that he didn't, discipline the guy or like sort of give him any sense of what good manners are. And also I think another play that we saw this in was Nature, where they just went, yeah, man, sort of, you can stumble around, do your thing, and then reason kind of tries to appeal to man's better side, and then sort of fails because having sex is more fun and doing other stuff is more fun. And then, repentance comes at the end because he's going to die.
Yeah, I mean, for all we know, it ends in a massive spanking session. We've had that in plays, where the ending is basically just you beat him into submission. We've been talking about that as one of the problematic elements in the text, along with several in this play. I'm turning. Any final thoughts on the close of the play before I turn into the play more generally, or the absence of the clothing of the play? Helen.
Yes, there is a loose character, the lady that Misogonus was claiming to be married to.
Melissa, yeah.
Oh, Melissa, yes, that was her name. Yeah, I mean, she's rather dropped out of the picture, but she was okay. I mean, I wouldn't mind her coming back in.
Lois.
Yeah, well, if she did, and if she had been having any sort of relationship with Misogonus, the obvious ending would be for him to be told to marry her, because that's one of the ways that you get. I mean, you get that a lot in later plays where there are sort of prodigal type characters. They actually do marry the woman, and that would nicely tidy things up. And then Philogonus could give them a certain amount of money to be getting on with, and maybe even some of those nasty characters who are about to leave start coming back and being nice to Misogonus again. Oh, you've got some money, but then he drives them away. I don't know. We could. I can see all sorts of things happening here.
Well, this is the thing, as the manuscript is saying it's Act 4, and I think that is actually in the text. So it might be that there's quite a lot of story available. Alexandra, that was why you were waving at me.
Yes, I've been waving about that specifically. I was scrolling back up through the rest of the text to see just on average how many scenes each act has. So, I mean, logically, we would imagine there's at least 2 more scenes, because you wouldn't have Act 5 as just the singular scene, right? But there could be as many as 4 more scenes going on. So there's possibly quite a lot of plot rather than just resolutions. There could still be
an additional complication.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and Eric.
I think what would happen is, after all this sort of, resolves beautifully kind of thing, you'd get like Codrus and Alison coming back arguing about who's going to end the play.
Yes, let's go meta with 2 of our favourites, Briony.
I've just thought Melissa could be like the consolation prize for the brother whose name escapes me. Like the consolation for well, sorry, he's all right now, so I'm going to keep him. So you can't be my favourite son anymore. But here's a woman. Get married.
Oh.
Yeah. So, I mean, as we go into our final thoughts and really thinking about this text overall, obviously some of you haven't been here throughout. Now, the text we've done so far is 23,000 words off the top of my head. Someone may be looking at the script. Now, that's about 2.5 hours plus. And there's bits missing. So, whatever happens to this play, before we even think about what we need to put back in, it really has to be cut. Which gives us a massive leeway in terms of opportunity. I think there's a complete structural rethinking of what's going on with Cacurgus. I wouldn't leave any of the World Summer stuff in, A, because the audience won't get it, and B, because it's not really very pleasant. I think there's so many wonderful situations in here that could be tweaked or boiled down. Certain bits of plot, some of the excesses of Philogonus could just simply be trimmed away. You could workshop this for weeks and weeks and weeks to find a version. I don't think it's clearly impossible to do this play as it stands. So I think certainly my starting point is actually there's an awful lot of bathwater going out with this baby, and that's fine. Because an authorial "this is how it should be" text does not exist, if in fact it ever exists for any play, which it doesn't. So in a sense, there's I've already talked about it over the week of there are scenes to remove and use in different contexts. We found today a speech we can remove and use in another context. That speech is mostly very good with a few minor changes and tweaks. That's very usable. So yeah, use your imaginations and think about what could be done, what you might want to see more of. You can do more with the characters. You can do less with the characters. You can write whole additional scenes, whole additional lives. We can do fan fiction, going off and finding out the backstory of Melissa if you want. I want to know about the marriage of Codrus and Alison. I want to hold an ongoing domestic soap opera available about them. So yeah, go large with this one if you in your final thoughts, or for that matter, just say I've got nothing. Move on. That's allowed as well. Helen, do you have any final thoughts?
Yes, I've been all the way through fascinated by the pig references. the pigs keep on coming up. I mean, it's mostly Codrus, but others too. There's a whole rural economy based on pigs and piglets that's evidenced here, which obviously should not be part of any modern production. But nevertheless, it's what got my interest. Apart from the excellent characterizations, I mean, the Isbell and Madge, I thought were a brilliant duo.
Right. The pigs flew for Helen. Lois, final thoughts.
Yeah, there was Cacurgus refers, I think, to sow gelders at the beginning of his long bit of shtick. Yeah, I think, I mean, there are loads of lines that are, at least to me, unintelligible. Maybe somebody's annotated them somewhere in a way that makes sense. So it'd be quite easy to cut this. And one could make some sense of the sort of lacunae in the text. I mean, Cacurgus almost feels sometimes as if his part had been written separately or worked up separately. You know, he'll say he's going to do something, and then it's as if we're missing the bit where he did it. And I think there ought to be a bit where maybe he and Madge and Isbell are all heading for Philogonus's house, and then on come all the other people, including Eugonus, and he realizes the game is up, you know, and because we never really, that's obviously why they can't act as witnesses. They're not even called as witnesses, and why they change their story. But it's a kind of missing bit of the action that could actually be shown rather than talked about.
Alan, any final thoughts?
I must admit, I think there's some very, very good scenes in it, but as a piece as a whole, it just didn't hang together for me. And I'm always uncomfortable with these plays that we saw with a sort of slightly earlier material, where they end up with heavily moralizing endings, or ending as we have it here. Just leaves me feeling uncomfortable and that it's a cop-out. I appreciate we're missing one or two scenes at least, but you know, there are some bits that could be mined out of it, but as a whole, I think, no, fine, been there, done it, next.
But you can cut the moralizing. You don't have to keep it. I'm saying we can do what we like with this text. That's the game we can play with this one without any shame or worries about authority. Or for that matter, play it in a totally different way. So he's clearly not, it's all a lie. I'm quite interested in that as a possibility. Francis, final thoughts?
Yeah, well, as I said yesterday, it's a baffling play because in lots of ways it's a mess with this clumsy, moralizing ending. But there are so many diamonds in this rough, you know, as Helen said, Madge and Isbell and Alison and Codrus, and that wonderful speech of Cacurgus is at the end. It's just I'm just in two minds about this play. On the one hand, it's wonderful in places, and in others, I'm just throwing up my hands.
Briony,
just throwing up.
Briony, final thoughts?
Yeah, there's some brilliant moments. There's a couple of really great characters. Generally, the women in this one, actually. But the thing for me that really, really made this play, especially today, was all the gaps and the way it reads with all those gaps. It was hilarious. And I feel like you could perhaps go over some of the old plays that you've thrown out as being completely useless, redact random bits of them and read them again, and they might be excellent. Who knows?
Well, they who cut the play write the play. So you've got so many options there. Alexandra, you were just here for today. How are you feeling?
Utterly befuddled. But yes, I'm having fun with the gaps. I was very keen on them, and I still am. Yes, and I think there's something. The thing that I found entertaining was people's ways of bridging those gaps, of making something work. And I think there are lots of ways in which you could play with that in putting on maybe not a full production of the entire play, but of a section that includes those gaps, and sort of how many ways can you entertain an audience with, one, the nonsensicality of the text where those gaps exist, but also with the making sense of stuff without adding words, as Tamara did, and as I think I noticed several other people. So yeah, that's the meta side of it, is the bit that I'm taking out,
or leaving in, for that matter,
or taking away.
Yeah.
Yes.
Eric, final thoughts?
Yeah, I like the bits, as you know, Codrus and Alison just like sort of arguing over nothing, basically, or like, I told him, no, you have to tell him because you don't communicate better than I do, and then all the sort of random bits of the gaps. I think that would actually make it a really good Zoom production, because you could just pretend that you froze. And it's like, where's the rest of the play? Yeah, no, that's just evil. But yeah, I think it has some good stuff. But yeah, like bits that I would totally workshop, just like for the hell of it, like the physical comedy bits, not necessarily the gambling that we had yesterday. That seemed like a very elaborate scene, just to sort of point out how much gambling and how good at gambling they were, and all the privileges and sort of making gags about priests and stuff. But the bits sort of like somebody some heads disappearing and stuff, right? Those would be fun.
Oh yes, we've got the potentially comedy puppet hens, haven't we? So many options. Rachael, final thoughts?
I like the part with Codrus and Alison, and then I think those are some funny parts, and then Madge and Isbell, and then I guess also Philogonus, like his over the top self-pitying is funny, and I think the form that this is written in is interesting just because it bucks so much how so many other people write, and it seems so much more modern. Yeah, I wrote in the chat, can we just cut out all of Cacurgus's parts?
He seems almost entirely superfluous. He doesn't seem to do anything at all.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just I wonder what the perspective of people living in this time is, because I feel like I don't know, some of this, like his parts, it's like watching a South Park episode, and it's like, is this the edgy humor of the time, and this is what it seems, this is how it comes across 400 years later, or 400 plus years later. I don't know. I also just feel like if I was on a date with somebody seeing this play back then, I'd be like, I don't care if he accuses me of being a witch, I'm never going on another with him.
There's something about Cacurgus that just feels really. It felt very Robert Wilson-y, actually. I was having flashbacks to some of the material in, Cobbler's Prophecy and Peddler's Prophecy, and that sort of semi-star vehicle that doesn't quite fit with anything else that's going on in the play that has been written. I'm not suggesting for a second that it actually is literally him. But it's that kind of part where it feels like it's playing to his strengths, but it's not necessarily connecting with anything else that's going on. It feels in a slightly different register. It's a very odd text in that sense. Lois?
Yeah, something that interested me in the last scene was where somebody made a comment about, I think, Codrus, and said, fools like this never lie. And it was so much a throwback to what was said about Cacurgus at the beginning that I started wondering, I mean, if this was Cambridge students and this was a couple of the absolute stars of their year, brilliant, gifted, etc., who were playing these parts. And then there was all this about, these guys are so dumb, they never lie. I mean, it almost seemed as if it was kind of playing off what the audience already knows about them. But there is something funny going on there, I think, this idea about fools. And I noticed that Cacurgus also says in his big hire me speech that anybody that hires him will get a very fool, which might mean, the real fool, not a fool that's manipulating everybody and so on the way he is.
Tamara or Sammy, I don't know who's going to be making the statement, coming in again just for today. Any final thoughts?
From what I can see, it feels very hello. It feels a bit disjointed. So I kind of agree with Alan. There's bits in it that I really liked, but there's also, I don't seem to be able to see what the glue holding it all together is. And Cacurgus is weird and racist, and I wasn't there for the other things he said, but I'm sure it was equally bad. So other than the please give me a job speech, I think he should be cut.
Various calls for that. Aliki, final thoughts?
So I really enjoyed the language in this play, much of which I didn't understand, and I would enjoy playing around with it. But I'm not sure I'm that interested in it beyond that. And I do like that speech of Cacurgus's, which I agree should be kept. Mostly I'm just I know it's just the structure for the comic business to be around, but mostly I'm just stuck at, we had 2 sons. We named one of them Hate Parent and the other one Parent Love. And for some reason, this one turned out to be a total creep. And the other one's quite nice, actually. We can't work it out.
Yeah, a terrible case of nominative determinism here. Briony.
Like, if they named him, why would they keep Hate Parent and send away Love Parent? What's wrong with them?
You sent away the wrong one. Elizabeth, final thoughts?
Yeah, I think I was just really enjoying everyone's feedback. I think I echo what Francis said, because I was here on Monday and today, so I kind of missed the bit in the tavern, which was supposed to be kind of really engaging, dynamic scenes, which weren't as choppy, which didn't have as much erratum in them. I think I echo what Francis said, that he said he was a bit of a mess. And I thought, yeah, that kind of sums it up. You have some really lovely moments. Francis called them diamonds. You have some characters which are really compelling. The racism in the play was a bit touch and go, because I don't know if we've had a play that's been racist in quite this way, with like painting themselves in mud. Usually, I think most of the plays that we've done, the racial things have been to do with Judaism and Islam. So it's interesting for us to see one that fits the focus in terms of ethnicity. I don't know if I liked it. I think it's really difficult to say if you like this play, because there's big chunks of it missing. And I think that's the comment I had on Monday, that there was so much missing. But today, that we've missed the ending of the play. We've actually got the ending missing as well. I feel like there was a lot more that we've lost. Those are my thoughts, yeah.
So that's where we've landed. I'm only. I mean, it's always interested me as a writer is the exercise of taking this text and turning it into something actually stageable. But let's be honest, I'm not going to have the time anytime soon for that to happen. I am briefly going to stand up for the structure of the play overall. There aren't as many scenes as we say there are. There's only actually been about 3 or 4 scenes, not quite matching the acts. They're broken up artificially. So it is actually a slightly tighter structure than you'd think. There's only one scene that at the moment looks like it's pointless, which is the Madge and Isbell scene, because it doesn't go anywhere. But we don't know necessarily whether that gets picked up on more, or whether there's a bit missing in the text from the bits we've just done. So on the whole, actually, I think structurally it's very sound. The problem is actually the occasional bits of business that are really, really, really problematic. But thankfully we're invited here to cut the hell out of it, because it's already been cut the hell out of it by time. So all that remains to do here is say maybe one day we'll be back, but probably not for a while. To thank all the wonderful readers in the room. Thoughts in the comments as per usual. If you have any thoughts, suggestions about what might be done with this, do get in touch. All that remains to thank all the wonderful readers in the room. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Bye.
His arse shall surely quake.